What's all this? Hey. Just trying to get into the Halloween spirit. What? Is it too much? I mean, you look good. Don't get me wrong. We always look good. But don't you think it's a lot? Yeah, but the candle, it's for Vivian, Queen of Wraiths. You know, spooky, scary. I thought it'd be really cool to show a badass lich. I mean, we're just talking about candles that we got from Cantrip Candles. They've been really cool about sponsoring our podcast After the Table. Yeah, but we can also do an outdoor shoot to, you know, showcase the woodsy flavors of the Vevitar. I see what you mean there. Yeah. But don't you think this is just going a little bit overboard? I was thinking something like a deity altar, you know, kind of showcasing the candle a little bit more, and maybe making an ambrosia that resembles something that Cantrip Candles put together for this candle themselves. And we always look good in black. I mean, come on. Hello. And, I mean, that would be perfect to showcase the laudanum and its dark history. True, but I think we can achieve all that without going full Halloween. Wait, who said this was a costume? I have a phylactery in the garage. There are a couple of souls that I need to add to it. So, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna get out there. What?
Make your Halloween just a bit more creepy with Cantrip Candles' new Patron and Deity candle featuring Vivian, Queen of Wraiths, with notes of laudanum, Vevitar, and a special ambrosia that they concocted themselves. Go to cantripcandles.com and get yours today. And tell them Shelly from After the Table sent you.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of After the Table, a TTRPG podcast. 'Tis I, your favorite chronically online drag queen who's also a GM, Shelly Von Miller here. And speaking of chronically online, this episode we have an amazing e-commerce professional, GM of the actual play studio Total Party Shill, and co-founder of your number one way to find a GM or players for your table on, you know, for TTRPGs, whatever you want to play or run, StartPlaying.Games. Welcome to the table, Nerd About Town, Devon Chulick. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Hi. So,
Can you introduce me everywhere?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, cool.
So I make the joke that I listen to other podcasts. There's this drag queen who has a podcast, and she does it like off the top of her head. She has like different people on and it's just like,
The level of, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, gosh, I wish I could do that off the top of my head. I can't. I cannot. My brain, I have to have it written down. Because I will stumble. Even whenever I have it written down, I will just stumble and everything like that. But yeah, no, shout out to Kelly Mantle for being my inspiration.
What's her podcast called?
Oh gosh, now that I can't remember it and I'd have to do the Google, just look up Kelly Mantle podcast. There you go.
Okay,
in post, editor Shelly will put it here. Here we go. Just more work for me to do. So for those who don't know who you are, outside of all the things that I said, introduce yourself. Let the people know.
I'm Devon Chulick. I'm the creator of Total Party Chill, which is a tabletop RPG studio here in San Francisco. We make actual plays, and we make really cool merch for your games. And then I'm also the co-founder of StartPlaying.Games, or now StartPlaying.com, now that we got that domain. And StartPlaying.com is the biggest solve for the worst problem in our hobby, which is finding people to play with. There's, the common story here is people like not even getting a chance to have that community anymore because they don't have anyone near them, or they are of a marginalized identity that has like historically not been welcomed in gaming spaces. And then, Start Playing has made it so that these people can find not only their group, but the game that they want to play, and a game master that's like there to make sure everyone has a great time.
Oh, how did you, obviously you've been an aficionado, a fan of TTRPGs for a while. So, like, how did you get started? Like, what game were you playing? What's the deets? Let us know.
Yeah, the origin story.
The origin story, as it were.
It's funny because here's kind of like my origin story and how things all kind of fell into place. I've loved tabletop role-playing games since I was young. Actually, the first one I ever played was a choose-your-own-adventure book that had a dice rolling component that my mom read to me when I was like 5. And that was like my first foray into like this type of gaming. As I got older, like like anyone else, I just fell in love with these games. And, it wasn't till probably 2015, 2016 that like I got into like the industry side of things. I was just running D&D for a lot of people. A lot of people want to like learn how to play a D&D because Stranger Things had come out and it was very in vogue. And so every week I was introducing a new group to D&D along with like having a regular weekly group. And I remember one day after running this game for people, they were like, "Hey, could you run this for my coworkers?" And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't sound fun. I don't know who your coworkers are. And they continued saying, our budget for events like this is around $500, which I said, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I charge." And I wondered if more people, there was more companies or more people. And so I ended up spending a weekend and I made a website for myself as a professional dungeon master. And one of the reasons I really leaned into this is around that same time, I had a very good friend who worked at Twitch who came and played in one of our games, and he played with my weekly group. He says, "Oh my gosh, have you guys ever thought about streaming? That was the most fun I've ever had in a game, even as a guest. You guys have great chemistry." And he's like, "I'll help you guys get set up." And so we had a little bit of help because we had some friends, a friend who was pretty high up at Twitch that kind of helped us get set up. But I was looking like it'd be really expensive to get a studio to do this because we all played in person. And, it's a little bit easier to set up remote. But I was like, this is going to cost me a lot of money. But I had just found out that people were willing to pay me $500 to run a D&D game. So I kind of started running games professionally to fund this studio idea. And within probably about 6 months, I had enough money for all the cameras, all the mics, all the equipment, and that's how Total Party Chill was essentially funded. Was me running games professionally, and then that gained a lot of good traction to the point where I ended up getting a call from a woman who was writing an article called "Rise of the Professional Dungeon Master," and she says, "Can I interview you?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." I ended up getting the feature on it in Bloomberg Business Week. And this exploded. I had so many game masters reaching out to me saying like, "Oh my gosh, how can I do what you were doing?" And so I was like, okay, well, let's start like a newsletter. Let's start like a resource group. And that is when I started thinking about like, it'd be great if there's like something that could do what I was doing, but on like a scale for all GMs. And that was kind of like the sparkle in my eye of Start Playing. So those are kind of like the background of like how these things were going to come about.
That's amazing, because the fact that they're both growing together at the same time, how did you kind of parse that kind of workload? Because obviously, for those who don't know, coming up with content for a newsletter and coming up for content for a website, and also figuring out like story beats for everything like that, and you're dealing with production, how did you work on that workload?
I mean, what's funny is like this is all while also having a full-time job. But having a full-time job also means like, and it's very sad sometimes, right? Because this is just the truth of it. When you know that you can be secure financially, it's a little bit easier to spend a few extra hours on the things that bring you joy and the art, because you're not as worried about being able to pay rent. And a lot of folks who, do media creation full time, they really have to be very focused with their time, because it's not as stable, right? It's not consistent. And so I had that blessing that I was doing this while having a full-time job, but it's also like, having to burn those hours and having to like sacrifice certain activities, which was fine because I was getting so much joy from it. And, it eventually in 2020, I got a phone call from my now co-founder. It was literally the first day of lockdown in San Francisco. And he was asking me a bunch of questions because I was, I'd been featured in Bloomberg. I also lived in San Francisco. He did too. And I soon found out that he was trying to build a similar solution. And when I found this out, we were on the phone. We talked for 4 hours. My wife was in the other room like, what is going, like, because it was really a random phone call. I didn't recognize the number. I was like, let me go answer this. I popped in the other room. I'm there for 4 hours. My wife's like, what is going on? The next day he calls me. I was like, do you want to be a co-founder with me as I build this? I was like, absolutely. So then the next, year or so, 6 months, I was still working full time. I was still doing, Total Pride Chill, but then I was building Start Playing with him in the evenings, 6 hours a night, like right after finishing work. And that's really what it took to make that happen.
Do you think your background in e-commerce helped you, not just like with the marketing aspect, but like figuring out, because by the way, for those who don't know, you were doing e-commerce for like Chubby's, and you were also a co-founder for like an e-commerce photography platform before that as well. Do you think that helped with figuring out how to do the marketing and how to like corner the market for basically online gaming?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you learn anywhere, right? And you learn from people that, mentor you and people you work for. And so, my old boss at Chubby's, brilliant guy, Tom Montgomery, he's really what kind of led me to be very data driven in a lot of decisions. And when it comes to, like scaling marketing efforts. But when you're starting out, we did a lot of things that didn't scale. One of the big things we did is we found 100 Twitch streamers that were, Twitch streamers that had around 20 concurrent viewers tops. And they were all, dungeon masters, or they all had an actual play. And we all sponsored one episode of each of theirs. And it was somewhere everywhere between like, $200 to $300 per person. And this was probably the big first sponsorship these people had. But it also was like, hey, also run a game on our platform for your community. And a lot of these streamers did that. They're like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. I'm going to keep doing this. And I really focused on the people that I thought would this would have the most impact for them. We didn't start with the biggest streamers. We started with people that I knew like, they're probably going to want to use this. And that was, kind of that classic marketing stuff is like, think about who would benefit from your product. And having the people that would be also those that endorse it was really impactful so early on. But as far as like the whole e-commerce, I mean, as far as like building products, designing websites, like all that had a hand in helping like guide what we eventually ended up building.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I found Start Playing because of probably a Facebook ad or maybe like an Instagram ad. And I was like, okay. And I kept seeing it and I was just like, okay, maybe I should go check this out. By the way, ads work, people. Let's not kid ourselves. Online ads work for a reason. That's the reason. It's the same with like you keep seeing it and like you keep seeing it. It's just they like to find an algorithm that works for you.
There's actually, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I really want to know more about marketing, there's a great book called How Brands Grow that I would recommend reading, and it talks about like one of the hardest things is ads. It's really hard to prove its attribution, right? Because you could run an ad, and if the person doesn't purchase within an attribution window of like 7 days or 24 hours, you're like, that money's wasted. But sometimes you'll find like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about you a year ago from an ad, and I had it bookmarked, and when I was like, oh, I actually have free Saturday nights now, I should go find a game, and there's no way to account for that, right? It's really hard. But it talks about a deep dive into like attribution and ads and the psychology behind them and why they work and when they don't work. It's a very interesting read.
I might have to add that to my long list of books that I need to read. As I look at
it's plastic or paper.
Yeah, it's like pile of shame. It's like TTRPG books that I should probably just crack open and, do things with, and just regular books. I'm just like, I should probably read that. But for those who are not familiar with Total Party Chill, let's kind of like go back to the actual play of it all. What you already explained, like the origin story, but like, what have you learned about the production side of things? What have you learned about, because again, you were in e-commerce. Yeah. You weren't doing like Hollywood stages. You weren't, on TV or anything like that. How have you learned from that side of the industry, as it were, I guess?
I mean, I think very early on we tried to be very engaged with like the people that were part of that community, the people that watched us and tuned in, and that helped guide like a lot of decisions that led to what we became in the future. I think the most I learned is technology. I never knew anything about mixers, audio. Like the idea is, there was a lot of tutorials out there about how to do actual play, but it was all remote. There was nothing that was about like how to do it in person, right? Critical Role was doing it, but there was no like, hey, how does Critical Role do this? And we actually were the first to make like a tutorial that we put on our YouTube of like, hey, how to stream like Critical Role, that talks about having multiple cameras in the same place, having all these mics set up, and how that works. And that was something that was probably I have no background in that, and it was just like anything. Like I would find excellent, intelligent people that knew something, and I would just directly ask them like, hey, how do I do this? Or I would hire people. There's a wonderful recording studio here in San Francisco called Different Fur Studios, and one of my friends runs it, and I said, hey, can I hire one of your engineers to come and set up our mixer and explain how this works to me? And he was like, absolutely. So I paid for her time for an hour, came over, set it all up. And now every time we upgrade equipment, I get another engineer from his team to come and help me. So it's sometimes it's like, you don't have to learn everything. You can get an expert and learn from them. And that is one of the best ways to learn, is to learn from an expert, someone who's already done it. But if you can't find those, it's a lot of guess and check. And there was a lot of bad technological problems we had early on, bad echoes, cameras fritzing, out of sync, so many things had gone wrong, and it would stress me out. But that's part of live production. And we actually, it's also one of the reasons why we stopped doing live production. We went to a pre-recorded model.
Yeah, because now you're doing 6 to 8 episodes per season, and those are Patron exclusive, except for one of the seasons it's on YouTube. Outside of that, was it just, the pandemic isn't the pandemic that we had in the past. It's everybody has to go back to work. Everybody's not remote anymore. What spurred the pre-recorded aspect of the thing?
So, I started thinking a lot about my players, and I didn't want them to burn out either. And I felt myself starting to just feel too stressed with the game, and I wasn't enjoying it as. And it's also as you get older and you do the same thing over and over again. So I realized, hey, doing tech, because it was me that was running tech while also GMing when we live streamed, and camera switching, setting it, having the scene switching, throwing on the different audio. That just, as fun as it was, it became stressful, and I wasn't having as much fun at the game. And so when I said, hey, we're going to pre-record everything, and then we're going to have someone else edit it, and we're going to put it out that way. The first time we did that, I felt like I was running one of the best games of my life. And I fell in love with the whole, format all over again. And so that's when I knew, like, this is what I need to do. And it's also like, it's really hard to say every Sunday we get together for 6 hours, we do this. It's a lot of ask, especially as you get older, and the lives of people change. When you're a young 20-something, it's a lot easier. But as you get into your mid 30s, late 30s, you have to be really intentional. So that's why we switched to, like, hey, we're going to record like once a month or once every 2 weeks for an entire 8 hours, and we'll get several episodes done. And then we'll send those to our editor to edit and put together. And that process, not only has it been really successful, we've seen more interest in our shows than ever now because of that, but it's also it's great on us. And now it kind of also allows us to pay our cast. Before it was like, hey, here's some food. But now we're at a point where with sponsorships and enough, one day of time is a lot easier to pay for than let's pay every week. And so that, I think that's made a huge impact on everyone.
What has the sponsorship aspect of the actual play, for your actual play, look like? What are you putting forth? Are people approaching you? Are you approaching brands? Because there's a lot of APs that are like, I want to get a sponsorship. I don't know how to do this because they've never made content before online, and this is their first foray into media in general.
Shelly, this is the best question because I want to give such a concise answer to anyone who's looking for this. The best way to make money if you want to be a sponsorship isn't going to be your viewer count, right? Because nobody has enough views to get money that's worth it. It's if you can make fantastic content that the sponsors can reuse. The biggest appetite that sponsors have is content that they can repurpose, reuse, they can put in short form, they can put in pre-rolls, something that is almost evergreen creative for them, right? Or a seasonal creative. That kind of content. If you can make something that's that good, then it makes sense for a lot of folks to work with a smaller output size, because that content can be reused in paid distribution or in other ways. So that's a big thing to remember. There's really very few actual plays that can pull in enough eyeballs to get a sizable sponsorship, right? If you think about the cost, if you were to go to Meta or to Google or to YouTube and you're like, hey, what is the cost per eyeball, right? You're looking at maybe a penny a view, right? And on the good side, it's most like 0.1 penny a view. And so if you think about how many viewers you have, you're like, well, we get around 500 downloads a month. That's still really small in most sponsorship and media by their eyes. But quality content, that's a whole different thing. And so if you can really position yourself as a short form creator, or you can position yourself as you make incredibly creative content, that's going to help out a lot. And that'll help you stand out. And reaching out to brands that you like and that you want to work with helps out a lot. So that's what I would suggest. And for us, we're with Pickaxe, which is a podcast distribution network. They picked up our latest show, This Game is Cursed. It's my favorite thing I've ever made. I love it. So there's a bit of built-in sponsorship on that side that comes in. And then we also have our e-commerce products that we sell, which is, that helps pay for so much on our end.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of actual play podcasts lately get attached to media hubs or podcast hubs. What did the process look like going from independent to signed to a media hub like that?
It was really it was really kind of, well, so I can't tell you 100% because we had finished season 2 and they reached out to us and was like, we'd love to have you on. I'm like, great. And we filled out some paperwork and we're on, but we were in the middle of recording and doing post for season 3. And part of that was also like, we were taking a big break. One of my cast members and myself took a break because we had kids. He had his second, I had my first. And so we actually just last week announced season 3 is finally here. So there's not as much as I could talk to about with Pickaxe, but I could tell you like there's so many people that I've talked to that are already on there that just like lamented about like how fantastic they've been.
Yeah, because it's one of those things. It's like, okay, how do you grow independently, and then how do you, I don't know, like get noticed? It's like one of those like, hey, pick me, choose me, love me type of situations. It's like, how do you up your game to kind of be like, all right, I can now, like, we can now think of the future of whether it's like a podcast like this or your actual play, whether it be like audio or video. It's one of those things like, how do you, I don't know, figure out the future of a production like this? What does your planning look like? Like, who's involved? Like, what, like, now that you have a media hub, do they work with you on like production and like future endeavors and things like that?
So not really. I mean, they're very much like, there's some co-sponsorship stuff that they're, they do, especially when you start launching new seasons. And they said, hey, if you also have other shows you want to talk about in the future, we're happy to, talk about that too. But as far as like planning things out, it's a pretty small team. We have myself, we have our studio manager who does like a lot of admin stuff. We have our cast and we have our editor. And that is pretty much everyone. And we're blessed to have an editor. I tell you what, like I'm so happy to never open up Premiere Pro to edit an actual play again. Especially as it's gotten more complex, right? We're no longer live camera switching, right? We record every camera independently. And then that's, so then we have, 3 to 4 camera angles that's uploaded. Then we have, 5 to 7, audio inputs of different mics, and they're all, so all the work that goes into that, I'm happy not to be doing that. But when you're starting out, you have to. And it really does become a make sure whatever happens next is better than the thing you made last. If you keep doing that, it's still not a guarantee that like you'll get in front of enough people and it'll explode. But what you can do is like, I mean, Sam Reich had the right, approach. Like short form will get you eyeballs. But the ratio of eyeballs that you get on short form versus what you get into viewers is much less. But here's this. If you can get one new listener a day, right, that will compound. And so if you think about like, okay, that's only 365 people a year. If you get enough people that are listening to you, they will recommend you to someone else. And that you will start to get word of mouth. I mean, word of mouth is still the best marketing for anyone, for anything in the world. So instead of like trying to figure like, hey, how do I get like 1,000 listeners when you're just starting out? Like, how could you get one? And just continue trying to get one, and that makes it a lot more manageable when you see those numbers slowly go up, because spikes are hard. They can happen, but it's a lot more difficult, especially when you're starting out.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm part of an actual play myself, and we always joke that we make the actual play for one person, and that's it. And it's the one person that shows up, like, because we're a live actual play. So it's like, that person's in chat, that's who we're making this for. Yeah. If somebody else watches it, if somebody else listens to it, if somebody else likes it, good on them. But we're like, Charles, this is for you. Like, this is for you. What has because you're the primary GM for TPC. Yeah. What has kept you motivated to keep telling stories, to keep diving back in and like not being like, hey, somebody else take over the reins real quick. Let me just call it right now.
Yeah, it's so funny. I rarely get enjoyment from playing, and I love being a GM. It's one of those things, But I mean, everything we make like still makes me so happy. It's like I'm so excited to do it. It's very rarely am I dreading. Like sometimes people dread even their creative work until they start doing it, and then they're like, oh, it's like when you're like, oh, I'm dreading going to this friend's house, but once you do, you have a great time. So, but I don't really get that. Every time I'm always excited. It's like, I have more ideas than I have time. The fact that I get to create and I get to, make this. I mean, we all know like what happens if all of your needs are met, right? Like everyone just makes art. Like that's the thing is like if you, if none of us had to worry about food or rent or healthcare, like we would all be making art to some degree. And so I feel very lucky that we've been able to do that and that I've been able to do that. And especially share it with my friends, that's a fun part of Total Bright Chill is for the most part, our entire cast is not, tabletop role-playing game creators. They're, the only name they have is just from being on Total Party Chill. But it's because we started as friends and, most of that cast is that outside of if we bring in like, a guest, which guest is a great way to help grow your actual play. That is time and time again. I mean, it's actually funny. So I was talking to Brandon Lee Mulligan about this because I was asking like how he did the casting for Mentopolis. I was like, hey, you asked Hank Green what he wanted to play. Did you design the entire thing around Hank Green? He's like, well, yeah, actually, I kind of did because we want to bring him in. He's an internet kind of person, and we felt like his audience would overlap with ours really well, and that would help grow Dropout. Same reason why they did, Dungeons and Drag Queens. It's not only something fun that they wanted to do, but they also knew that there's this audience out there that would probably enjoy Dropout's content and would enjoy Brennan, but also knows, Bob the Drag Queen, knows, all these queens. So that is one of the best ways you can grow your podcast, your actual play, is by having guests like Shelly having me right now.
Exactly. Hey, like that's the whole reason of this podcast is I just wanted to sit down with people and just nerd out about TTRPGs and just be like, let's nerd out real quick and just be like, yeah. I love making this. I love talking about actual plays and the games that we play and things like that. And as a drag queen myself, I like, it's one of those things. If it wasn't so freaking hot right now, I would be in drag, but I'm roasty toasty. It was noon and I was just like, it was noon and I was like, should I put on a pound of makeup? And my forehead started to sweat and I was like, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm no stranger to a wig. And if it's above 70 degrees, I ain't wearing one.
Well, you're also in San Francisco, where some of the best drag queens are at. I'm just saying. I mean,
and it's usually never higher than 70 degrees. That's
lovely
why.
Lovely
the San
Bay
Francisco
wins.
Weather. I mean, like Harvey Milk and the queer, culture that exists in here. That's part of. It's also the weather. It's
yeah. Perfect. It's just the breeding ground of amazingness.
Yeah.
I live in Texas, so if you want to do drag in the middle of summer, it's like, yeah, let me just sweat to death and hope my makeup stays, even if I wear blue marble setting spray.
Do you want to know something very interesting about San Francisco and its queer history?
Yes.
This is an aside. You could edit this out if you want to. But one of the main reasons why San Francisco has such a high, a population of a queer community is because this was a military outpost at one time. And so a lot of people who got their blue discharge note because the military was not accepting of what they considered alternative lifestyles, they were dispatched here. And so they had very few places to go because that kind of note, that color of discharge, which wasn't dishonorable, wasn't honorable though, but that note was kind of a tell that this person was because they were, queer. But because so many of them were in San Francisco, they were able to find work with other people who already had an in somewhere. So the community was kind of built by people that had nowhere to go, and then kind of created a community for themselves. And that's one of the reasons why that community started out really early in San Francisco.
Yeah, give it up for West Coast Navy, the West Coast Navy. No, because what's funny is, so I'm in a family full of like Navy and Marine veterans, and my grandparents on my father's side were stationed out on the West Coast at one point, and I can't remember the bar, but for some reason, every boomer or like World War II veteran who were stationed out near San Francisco knows of this one queer bar that had a drag show, and like even if they are the straightest couple would go to that drag show every time they were in town, and one of those couples being my grandparents. And it was just like, what is going on? But yeah, there's actually a book, and I can't remember it. I read it. No. It's about the building of queer communities across the United States, or at least communities in general. And there is the talk of the building of Castro Street, but it's a historical, like, academic book, and I read it while I was in grad school. So it's one of those things. It's like I was writing about the Fort Worth queer community whenever I was there, and so I was just like, one of those things of academia is like you have to look at all this other writing about people talking about things. So I was just like, oh yes, Castro Street. One of my things that I want to do one time is like just go to Castro Street.
There you go.
But I guess.
Sorry, we got so off track.
I know, it's fine. I love nerding out about things like that, even if it's like not even. It's just like, oh, history. I love history. Please let me know your little nugget of history. Let me take your nuggets of history. But okay, why do you think AP is such a compelling story format, and why do you think it's grown so much? And for some, it's become saturated, like oversaturated. But I think it's just the fact that there are more people willing to tell stories now. Why do you think it's become that kind of like format for a lot of people?
Well, I think the reason people listen to it is because they want a game. The thing is, when we listen to things and we watch things, our brain thinks that it's happening to us. That's why we get scared when we watch scary movies, that's why our heart gets a flutter when we see, scenes, of this, romance or that we feel, on the edge of our seat when action, right? Like our brain is wired to interpret things this way. So when you listen to a game and you're laughing with everyone else that's laughing, or someone does something, very, that no one else expected, it feels like you're at that table. And, that feeling of joy that comes from that, this also is kind of assumption of community that you get around that table is kind of sometimes a byproduct of just consuming actual plays. So I think that's part of it, right? And I think for the longest time it's been so hard to even find a group, and so the next best thing is to listen to a group. And so I do wonder, there's also this level of I'm one of these people too, where like I just sometimes can't be satiated. Like, a one game a week, that's okay. That's not enough. I need, a podcast. I need a one shot in the middle of the week. There's this appetite, and I think when you find something that you love, you want to dive in and you want to not have it rule your life. But I think a lot of us are kind of the folks that when you know what you like, you want to consume a lot of it. And I think that has a lot to do with the rise of AP. There's so many other things that have probably brought to it. I mean, we watch people play games. We watch people just chat. This idea of like hyper authenticity is huge. And if you sit there and you're watching someone play Project Zomboid, right, and you're like, you could lose an entire 2 hours into that, and it's completely fictional. So there's really no difference in that versus actual plays as far as like what they represent is this very authentic experience of watching a sort of improv, an improv that doesn't involve having to throw out a random place and a job. We're not like in the basement of a local college. There's these, I guess, physics engines that is the game system, right? It's kind of like limits like what is possible and how things work. And I think that allows for better storytelling because you don't have to sit and think about how would we resolve that, right? The physics are there for it. So I think all these things kind of help drive interest towards actual plays and listenership.
That's, yeah. Because at one point because I'm a late bloomer in the TTRPG world. I only started playing in 2020 with like the lockdown and things like that online. And at one point I was doing like 3 actual plays a week.
Yeah.
It was on top of like other things I was doing, on top of like making content in general. I was just like, yes, I will be in this other actual play. Oh, you need me for this and this? Yes, I've become addicted. Thank you. Please give me more stories. Yeah, no, I totally understand the thrill of chasing another story to just like not feel something, but to like feel the emotion that other people are feeling as they're telling this story. And what other games or stories are you hoping to get to bring to Total Party Shell? Like, is there like a game on the wish list that you're wanting to see? Is there like a world that you want to build in? Like, what's on the horizon outside of your pre-recorded game that you've according to the internet you've already gone into production for season 7?
We finished season 4. We're recording season 5 right now, and season 3 is to be released. But This Game is Cursed is that fun. What's the word? Oh, isekai is the word that I've recently learned this. But I loved the idea of the D&D cartoon. I also love Jumanji, and so that's really what kind of framed our what is now kind of our flagship show, This Game is Cursed, about 4 friends. As I say, they get sucked off into a world of fantasy, phrasing on purpose. But the thing in that story is they've discovered that there's multiple of these cursed games, and so there is a season 3 is a science fantasy, and it's kind of like this 80s rip of Star Wars. And so I realized that there's so many systems we can explore with this kind of larger story of like there's many cursed games and they all tie together, and so that's great because I can do a Call of Cthulhu, I can do a Star Trek or a superhero or these other systems inside this world. As far as like the next thing that isn't this podcast, that isn't This Game is Cursed, I've really fallen in love with Shadow Dark recently. And again, it's more that the fantasy, but it scratches an itch. It's just I played it a year ago, and it felt like I was running D&D for the first time. It was really, really fun. But we do have 5 other shows that are currently in post that are like trial shows. Like, hey, we've recorded 6 episodes. If people like it, they kind of all have a nice ending to them, but they can be picked up again. One it's called the Bad Luck Club, and it's about it starts off with 4 heroes finding a deck of many things, and it's just what happens after drawing from that. We have High Level Heroes, where we go through old school D&D adventures, but everyone is level 18 in a 3rd level adventure, which is like what happens when you're just a god in an adventure. Like, it really isn't about the combat; it's about like the everything but combat. And I think that also speaks to a lot of like folks. There's always this kind of power fantasy in some tabletop games where like, yes, I want to be super powerful. I want to be able to take out the bad guy like that. And it's kind of rewarding or satisfying when you can just pull down in a meteor storm at will. You know?
As somebody who's played high-level D&D, it's the scariest thing, because when you take big swings, guess who can also take big swings and just wreck you completely. But also it's one of those, like, the combat takes forever when you have like a fighter who can do like 3 rounds of combat at one time.
Yeah.
You have a cleric who can pop off on healing and things like that.
Yeah.
Or like a wizard who's just like, oh yeah, meteor swarm, just dome of invulnerability, meteor swarm. Let's make
10d6 damage. You know?
Oh yeah,
that's
just
great.
ridiculous amounts of damage.
But that's what's great about it is, you know, if you're the show is essentially like they're in like a 3rd level adventure. So like, what happens if you're like, nothing stops you? There's no combat is fast because one person has a turn and it's done. Which players kind of realize that like now they have to be very cautious about what they do because it's like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah, it's very much like what is it? You go back, you're in an MMO RPG, and you're like a high level, and you go back to like the beginning because you're carrying your friend through a dungeon. Yeah. You're just like, oh yeah, this is fine. Combat takes like 2 rounds, if that.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh, we're good. So moving on to like start playing, and like the other twin part of kind of like this journey into TTRPGs for you. There is discourse, and this might be some kind of controversial. Some people might get pissy about it because people do online. There are people online and in person, because I've had people tell me this in person to my face after they've played a paid game with me, that they shouldn't have to pay to play. What do you say to people like that?
We all got rent. We all got rent. We all have rent. We all have rent. If you don't have rent, you have mortgage. If you don't have that, God bless you.
Good for you.
Yeah,
must be nice.
Like, it's actually funny too, because every now and again I hear this, and especially when people comment this on one of our ads, I just block it. I'm like, listen, there are 18 times more people who recognize the value of a GM than there are who don't. The people who don't are just louder. And the reason I know this is because I see how people spend their dollars. I know that players have spent over $40 million playing games with GMs who've earned over $40 million on Start Playing. That's not a small number. So when people say like, this is how it shouldn't be, I mean, yeah, we shouldn't have money at all. We should be the Star Trek, the post-scarcity society, replicate food, explore the stars for the sake of science. But when you devalue someone's labor and you devalue someone's time and you say that they're not worth it, then they're also not someone who's worth time at your table. It's also crazy to assume that everyone can just find a game. The reason why Start Playing has succeeded is there were so many people that did not have that opportunity, whether they're immunocompromised or they're a marginalized identity who can never find a welcoming table, or they're someone who lived in a rural area, or there's someone who just, the idea of going in person somewhere stresses them out and gives them anxiety, and now they can finally have that community, that adventure, and they do so, remotely. There's so many reasons why paying for a game is okay, and there's so very few reasons why it's not. And I don't spend time arguing with these folks. When they come into the comments, I'm like, that's fine. But I'm going to spend my time talking to the people who want to find this community and helping the GMs who want to run amazing games for folks who do value that time of a GM and their labor.
It's one of those things like, hey, there we go. That's the clip right there. No, because it's one of those things. It's like we're all in a capitalist society. Yeah. We should get paid. Like, we should get paid, not just like people running games, but like, hey, you have a job, right? you should get paid for your time. You should be able to support yourself. And especially as like as a GM who, one, I am a disabled person because of A, B, C, D, my life in general. It's one of those things is like, this is my full-time job, making content, GMing online, being a actual play performer. And people are like, well, that's your choice. I'm like, yeah, it was my choice because I had to make it my choice. A lot of people have to make that their choice because of just life in general.
Yeah. And people choose to support you.
Yeah. And I greatly appreciate them. Thank you.
And yeah, like they choose to spend their money on your labor. Like, at the same time, like the one that I hear everyone mention, and I'm just surprised it hasn't sunk through on folks, is like, yeah, your friend could be a chef who cooks you a great meal at home and doesn't charge you. Yeah, of course, because you're friends and they invite you over to their house. But they're still going to charge everyone that comes in the restaurant because they don't know them. And sometimes, yeah, I go to my friends' restaurants all the time and I pay for a meal at my friend's restaurant. Like, so, but if I'm going to their house for a barbecue, yeah, well, I'm probably going to bring a bottle of something, or I'm going to, so the idea that this devaluing of time and labor is only because this hasn't been a thing. And some people think that they're going to have their games taken away because maybe their GM's going to realize that they don't actually have to play with these people. They can run a game professionally. And I don't think that's really the case unless you're a bad player, and maybe it's like to think back on how you treat your table and how you treat your GM. So I don't know. I could ramble on that forever, but
that's all. Exactly. In recent years with Start Playing, you've called upon your GM community to create workshops, because y'all have had like your own little workshops and like office hours online through like your streams. But you've called on the GM community to come up with ideas for workshops and run them, and you pay for that time and everything like that. What spurred that? Like what was the catalyst to do that?
Well, one of the best things any good company needs to do is scale, right? And when you have a two-sided marketplace where players and GMs, you also realize that like GM quality is really hard. It's really hard to onboard people, and it's really hard to give them the best tools because you would have to like make the experience so rigid that you could give them all of these tools, right? But that doesn't work for everyone. It's like not that if I said everyone who joins Start Playing has to meet with me a Tuesday at noon, and then every day at noon, like there's people that live in different countries that it's just not feasible, right? But making it so that other GMs can go ahead and like give their best practices and what's worked for them, and kind of take that institutionalized knowledge that they've gained and be able to pass on, hey, this is what worked for me, this is what you should do, this is what I've consumed. You create a ecosystem that kind of helps each other. And professional GMing isn't red ocean, right? There's a GM shortage generally in gaming. And so the only shortage we have is getting in front of as many players as possible, let them know that we exist. And so, GMs also being able to run the best game ever, learning from other GMs who've already done that is great. I actually tell everyone, if you want to be a great game master, the number one thing you should be doing is playing with more game masters, because you learn what you want to add to your game. You also learn what you want to take out from your game. If you play with a GM who does something that you do in your game, but as a player you realize that's not very fun, you're going to take it out. And that's how you become a great GM. Same thing with like a pro GM. You learn like, how do people welcome their players? How do they set up their communities? How do they, introduce people to show, like all these small little details. And so having the experts teach the people in the community that want to learn this seem like a no-brainer.
People always make the joke of like, oops, all DMs, but like, it's one of those things, it's like, that's the best way to kind of like, just kind of dive in and learn something new and like learn a game system that you might not know, but like somebody else knows like the back of their hand. It's
Before I forget, I got the biggest shout out though to Sarah, who manages all of the StartPlaying.Games webinars. She really leads that project and is kind of has taken it really from the inception all the way to what it is now. It wouldn't be what it is without her.
I get those emails as a GM on the platform. I get those emails and I'm like, I need to come up with an idea for a webinar one time, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I have time. It's one of those things. It's like, I don't know if I have time right now to make a webinar. Maybe I should. Let me put that on the back burner real quick. But what are you looking forward to? Not in just like your space of like Total Party Chill or like Start Playing, but like what are you looking forward to in the online TTRPG community? Are there like tools you're on the lookout for, or like that are on your like watch list? Are there APs you're wanting to dive into? Like, are there creators in the space that you're like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing and you're doing a great freaking job? Like,
yeah.
What?
So, I mean, there's too many creators to count that I would shout out, right? I mean, Start Playing itself, we've worked with over 300 creators, and each one of them is amazing. The things I'm excited for, though, isn't actually actual plays. It is technology. So, for example, the PDF has been around too long. Something will replace the PDF. There's going to be some really interesting digital tools I think we'll see in the future. I think the way that you can actually create software is getting a lot easier, and I think that's going to allow some people to be very creative. You see things like Morkborg has a pretty easy character generator. Shadow Dark has a pretty easy character generator. There's a lot of games that are creating digital tool sets as companions to them. And I think that makes things way more accessible, right? There's a lot of cool stuff we've seen with the VTTs. I think that's going to continue to happen. But when you see like the work that Pixel Table did with Alice is Missing and that kind of digital tool that's kind of companion with it, I think we're going to see more of those. And I think it's going to be easier to make that kind of stuff. And I think it's going to increase some of these games experiences for the online space. I also think like online is going to continue to outpace in person. And it's weird to think that, because when we started building Start Playing, we didn't think we were going to be an online only company. Eventually we're going to serve in person, but right now we're just online. And when we first built the company, we were like, well, let's have in person and online, even though we have the 6 weeks of this lockdown, not knowing it would become 16 months. But we built the version 1 with like a zip code finder, And so I think we're going to see a lot more digital tools that for the act of playing.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's a couple tools that I'm like, I've gotten cards at cons in the past, and I'm like, oh. And then like they pop up with like an ad, and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Y'all are ready to launch. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me... Like, I need another tool to add to the long list of freaking tabs that I'll have open while I'm running a game. It's like, oh yeah, let me go here and here and yeah. I'm always excited to see when companies take into consideration, like especially with TTRPG companies taking into consideration their digital footprint.
Yeah.
And like making a VTT, or as simple as this, you buy a physical book, you get the PDF automatically. Oh,
that's
I love it.
Like standard practice now, right? Like,
allegedly.
Which is great. Yeah.
Some people are like, you have to buy the physical book and then spend an additional $30 to like. We're not calling anyone out at all. At all. But what, I guess, what's on the horizon for you? What are you looking forward to, whether it's Total Party Chill or Start Playing or just whatever for your TTRPG life?
I mean, honestly, there's so much exciting stuff I'm looking forward to. On the Start Playing side, next year we're going to start working towards kids games on the platform, which is going to be huge. We're going to start working towards in-person solutions for Start Playing, and we're going to start working on internationalization, which is, translations, maybe playing around with local currencies. So 2026 is going to be a really exciting year for Start Playing. Right now, we're working on a lot of conversion rate stuff that just kind of makes the site easier to use for new players. And on Total Party Chill side, we have 3 Kickstarters in our future. This is wild. I made I can send you one of these audio clips. You can play during this episode. But we made 5 songs with from a band in LA that are imagine if D&D music that exists in the D&D world. But made with modern instruments. So songs you'd hear a bard singing at a tavern, except it's made with modern instruments. It's not novelty songs like "Let's roll a crit and get it." It's not that. It's like songs you would actually hear a bard singing, but with modern instruments. And I had this idea for so long, and I really liked it, and so I kind of self-funded it. And I would love to make it, a few more songs. And so I want to do, a backer kit, a Kickstarter, a crowdfunding campaign to finish out the album. Pay that team down in LA. They do amazing stuff. Katie Day, she is a fantastic composer, singer, songwriter. She's kind of led the project. And then we have a card game that me and kind of my right hand here at Total Party Chill we've been making. I've taken it to Gen Con for 3 years, and every time I play it with someone, they say this is one of their favorite games. So I'm very excited to bring Quest Keepers to the world. And we have a supplement that we want to bring out for gaming. For any kind of D20 system or 2D6 system or a bunch of systems, but it's a kind of a fun extension to your games. And so that's kind of our big 2026 is Kickstarters, crowdfunding.
Hell yeah. I like when the actual play people start actually capitalizing on the world that they've been building, or just the systems that they've been building along the way.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things, it's sponsorships are nice, doing Twitch subscribers or YouTube revenue is great. But in the long term, how are you going to make this sustainable? And I love the fact that there's Total Party Chill is doing this. There's all sorts of people who are finally being maybe it's time for us to, make our own money.
Yeah.
Instead of relying on others. It's let us make our own stuff.
I mean, the playmat has been insurmountable for us, right? And
I need to get that.
Do you have one?
No, I need to get one.
After this, I'll send you one.
Okay. I saw them and I was like, I want one so bad. I need to buy this.
We'll put up the little video of what it looks like
right there.
Right here. Yeah.
Drop it in here, editor Shelly. No, I saw it. I think you were introducing it on whenever we're recording this. You had just introduced it on TikTok, maybe, I don't know, or on a short form video somewhere.
Anywhere I can chill.
I was just yes, I need this. Because sometimes I don't want to grab a book or go through a PDF. I just want to be this. Okay. It's the same with I'm learning magic, and it's one of those, I have that little card. I'm I don't understand this, but if it can be broken down and I don't have to ask somebody else and I can just look and I'm yes, cheat sheet. Thank you.
Exactly. Who doesn't love a cheat sheet? I
love a good cheat sheet. As somebody who it sometimes requires a cheat sheet to remember things, I love it. So one last question to end this off before I send it and tell you to plug your things. Favorite topping on pizza?
Ooh, well, I mean, if you look at the Total Party Chill logo, you would say skulls and axes, because they're made of little mushrooms and pepperonis.
Exactly.
I think mushrooms and pepperoni, I think that's the ultimate combo. If I had to choose between those, if it was a Sophie's choice, it's going to go pepperoni. I'm a basic boy. Just give me some pepperoni, I'll be happy.
If you find a good pepperoni, especially the pepperonis that curl up and you get a little bit of a
It's got to have a little
crunch.
fill of oil in the center of it.
Exactly. You have to dab off a little bit, or just eat the whole thing. Whatever.
If you're not dabbing your pizza, are you even living?
Exactly. You just dab it a little bit, put a bunch of red chili pepper flakes on it.
You should be able to see through the napkin after dabbing it.
Yeah. I feel like that's I don't know. Some people are probably going to say that's not good for you. And I'm be like,
it's not. It's not good for you. Neither is ice cream, but we're
and I'm here.
It's
exactly.
So good.
As somebody who's lactose intolerant who loves pizza and ice cream, I get that on a whole nother level, on a cellular.
Define good for me. Yeah, good
exactly.
for my soul. Absolutely.
Good for my stomach, not so much. On that note, plug your shit. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find Total Party Chill anywhere online under Total Party Chill. Of course, our flagship show, This Game is Cursed, on all podcast platforms. And of course, if you want to find yourself a game because you've been wanting to play a new system, you've been wanting to find a group, head over to StartPlaying.com and start playing today.
Yeah, you can find that link and all of Devon's links down below, to include my link if you want to, sign up and be a GM or a player for StartPlaying.Games.
Ooh, let's go.
I always plug that. I'm like, hello, yes. But speaking of which, you can find me everywhere on the internet at Shelly Von Miller, because branding is important. Hello. To include Patreon and Fourth Wall memberships, where you can get early access to these wonderful podcast and the Patron Exclusive segment called Table Sets. Paid tiers start at $7 a month. Super chill, super cheap. Like the slice of pizza somewhere, probably. I'm sure pizza nowadays is $7. I usually just get Little Caesars. I'm a degenerate. Hot and ready, and everything's hot and ready. Sometimes it will take 30 minutes because the Little Caesars, no offense, Little Caesars, sometimes y'all take a while. Sometimes you're not always hot and ready. This is how I don't get sponsored by Little Caesars. But anyways, I love you guys very much, and I will see you on the internet. Goodbye.